Paul Chiari, founder of WeatherSV and MetaStreme. Welcome to our CoinGeek Live presentation on how, with the help of our partners, we are bringing IoT and big data to the Bitcoin SV network. In launching MetaStreme, it was important for us to align with partners, not only within the Bitcoin ecosystem, but also other industries that utilize big data and IoT in their daily processes. We believe many of these processes can benefit from utilizing the properties inherent in the Bitcoin protocol. Two of our partners, Daniel Keane from Ecology and Brendan Lee from Elas Digital, have joined me here tonight in Cairns for this presentation. We will go on to showcase some of the collaborative end-to-end solutions that could become the foundations for solving many of the issues that plague industry, society, and our environment today. MetaStreme recently went live on the Bitcoin SV network with the successful migration of the WeatherSV platform. This migration has enabled WeatherSV to decouple from the complexity of its Bitcoin integration and has facilitated a more scalable, efficient, and reliable platform. The experience of building and operating WeatherSV gave us many insights into the limitations we were facing, and MetaStreme was built from the ground up to address these. The opportunity around IoT and big data is huge. Looking here just at IoT, there are currently nearly 9 billion connected devices, which is estimated to grow to about 14 billion by 2024. And during this time, we can expect revenue growth from about $200 billion today to around $500 billion. The data ledger of the Bitcoin public blockchain, combined with support for microtransactions, tokens, and smart contracts, stands to revolutionize IoT applications and how data is collected, valued, shared, and utilized. I will now explore some of the practical measures we are taking to bridge the divide between the public ledger and a world of machines and data. In order to bring IoT and big data to Bitcoin, there are a series of technical and economic challenges to overcome. The simplicity and power of MetaStream's design makes it relatively easy to connect any current real-world application, database, or device to the Bitcoin ledger via our interface. This interface enables integration without any knowledge or concerns around Bitcoin development. MetaStream removes all the complexity from the application itself. Just send the data or the transaction output to MetaStream, and it will autonomously build, sign, and broadcast those transactions. No need for UTXO or key management or even a Bitcoin wallet, as we can accept a range of payment methods to fund an account that adds network fees to the transaction. Facilitating access to external data sources enable a myriad of projects and businesses to build solutions utilizing our technology. Some examples are data audit trails, supply chain solutions, smart contract applications, prediction and data markets, incentivized data collection and dissemination, and IoT and big data applications. Scale is important for these types of application, and MetaStream is built with unbounded scale in mind. As our record-breaking tests have demonstrated, we can indeed support the throughput required for IoT, big data, and enterprise use cases. Machines never sleep, and neither does Bitcoin, making it the perfect foundation for the machine-to-machine economy. But it needs to scale to support the throughput and economic conditions for the applications to thrive. We're building the tools to enable these possibilities on the only public ledger protocol we believe is up to the task. A campaign we ran in July was officially recorded, reaching nearly 3,000 transactions per second. However, we were only idling, and there is plenty left in the tank to take advantage of the future network scaling. The technical challenges are also being addressed at the network level, thanks to the fantastic work of Steve Shatters and the rest of the SV Node team. Improvements to scaling and the functionality of the network show a true commitment to unleashing the potential of the protocol and support for the use cases way beyond payments. The network continues getting better and stronger, and the recent updates will bring us closer to realizing our vision, and we look forward to putting the network through its paces again in the near future. Wider adoption of these applications will require not only the technical capability, but also an economically stable and viable framework, as even tiny fees do add up in significant volumes. Unstable fee rates seen on other public blockchains make many applications unfeasible. Unbounded scale means we always stay ahead of demand, minimizing the risk of similar issues occurring on the Bitcoin SV network. Thanks to the success of WeatherSV and the transaction volume it generated, we were fortunate to be able to take a lead in negotiating with miners and spearheading initiatives to reduce and stabilize fees, which led to lower transaction fees across the network. The migration of WeatherSV to MetaStream enabled us to introduce significant cost efficiency gains, increasing value to subscribers of the platform. The ability to easily batch multiple outputs into a single input, coupled with improvements in our data serialization techniques, we were able to reduce our daily network expense by over 70%. The slide shows a small sample of our new transaction format, which contains 100 individual location updates for a total size of about 10.5 kilobytes. Turning back again to the network development team, we can see how their updates and their roadmap are also important factors in addressing these economic hurdles, as they remove many of the barriers that have been imposed on Bitcoin and create unnecessary friction for certain applications of the network. MetaStream is now actively working to bring real-world solutions onto the platform, and some of our initial project partnerships are underway. Our Node-RED integration is an important step in opening the floodgates of adoption from the many IoT applications already operating within this open, IBM-engineered, flow-based programming framework. Dan's presentation will include more information about our solutions for carbon abatement and other use cases for his industry and the ecological well-being of the world as a whole. Dan started his own company not much more than a year ago, but is kicking goals in all directions, and his work with the Cairns City Council in advancing the discussion of these solutions is very exciting to all of us involved. Our partnership with Brendan on projects including the cow tracking system is fundamental to what we hope to achieve in delivering end-to-end solutions for a broad range of industrial use cases. The concepts he has demonstrated using tokens to link value to the data pertaining to a real-world asset or a token that is used to control the state of IoT devices are important components of the complete solutions we aim to deliver and will be expanded upon during Brendan's presentation. We are also very excited to announce our recent partnership with the transparent voting system, bVote, created by Eli Afram. This system has a broad range of applications from the ballot boxes to the boardroom, without the users even knowing that they are using Bitcoin. Please get in touch with us at our virtual booth for any more information on us, our projects, or our partners. And we apologise in advance if it is not attended, as the time zone does make it difficult. Anyway, that's enough from me. I will now hand over to Dan from Ecology for his presentation.
Thanks very much, Paul. That was a lovely introduction. So I'm from the wet tropics bioregion, and I've worked here for most of my professional life. I've been very lucky and I've worked on many types of projects, but every project I have to find or create data. And often I want to know how, what, where, when, how much, and can I trust it? Now, every time I want a consolidated, tamper-proof, generator-owned data repository. Now, big data is ubiquitous. However, its origin, validity, and accessibility is not. Whether you do compliance monitoring or machine learning, crap in makes crap out. So how about creating a way to capture and index environmental data for perpetuity in a way that the creator gets rewarded for high quality data? The saying is that the beginning of wisdom is to call things by their proper name. And I'd just like to add, you must also record it. This is a photo of a mountain stream I know in the wet tropics. Think about what's happening here. Think about the natural information, the processes, the data, the natural capital. There's air purification, photosynthesis and carbon storage going on. There's water purification, hydrological and geological processes. There's obvious biodiversity in plants and animals and fish and invertebrates. And there's probably even a gecko on there if you can see very closely on one of those trees. There's also unseen cultural connections, the human story and the human attachment. This is natural beauty at its best. And collectively, these ecosystem services are the natural capital, a capital that's based on interactions. However, this is just one snapshot in time. There's 86,400 one-second snapshots like this in a day. And that's a huge volume and high velocity data set. However, these beautiful mountain streams are disappearing. Ecosystem services are declining, biodiversity is decreasing, and atmospheric carbon dioxide is increasing. The figure to the right of your screen shows projected CO2 concentrations modelled just 100 years into the future. Now, I don't have all the solutions to alleviate these issues, but I do have some suggestions. Starting with the circular economy, where the magnitude and direction of change is valued. We need to value natural capital. The fantastic work that's done by Dr. Gretchen Daly and Pavan Sukhdev of the Tweed project. Now, I like plants, more specifically trees, so I'm going to stick with those for the time being. And let's talk about carbon abatement. Carbon plantings are my biodiversity Trojan horse. If I build a forest, biodiversity will happen. In 2017, I did plant physiology research looking at southern broadleafed conifers common in my bioregion. I grew seedlings in a high CO2 environment and found that at high carbon dioxide levels, like those projected, southern conifers have a higher relative growth rate compared to a mixed forest. Southern conifers, like this on the right, also have prodigious lifespans, more than 1,000 years. So that got me thinking. I can build biodiversity around trees that live for thousands of years, I can store carbon, and I can improve ecosystem services. But I have to monitor these locations in accordance with international carbon standards. So that means that I need to store, share, trade, and audit this data for the next 100 years. So we can accelerate landscape level restoration. This creates a carbon storage with a biodiversity co-benefit, like this cassowary, first seen in our 20-year-old restoration planning, and again 5 years later with a chick, demonstrating restoration planning's work. We can create carbon storage and recreate ecological system services, but we need to monitor them. We want to monitor a lot of parameters at a high frequency and over a large area. This creates a huge volume of data. Planting blocks can be monitored using UAV sensors such as LiDAR and hyperspectral cameras. Floral diversity and carbon stored within each square kilometre or square metre can be recorded and modelled. Fauna diversity, water quality and volume can be actively monitored using IoT-connected devices. And these data streams will be used to demonstrate the improved ecological services and function. To ensure quality assurance, we can further validate this data using traditional field techniques. And now, thanks to the BSV protocol, MetaStreme and Elas Digital, we have a way to create a ledger of this data, tokenized streams of verified immutable time series data, the data of natural capital restoration. The data will start looking like this: a high-resolution spatial data cube. Individual trees can be tokenized, and all subsequent aggregated and emergent properties can be referenced. Carbon stored can be tokenized and traded with an assurance that there's no double spending. Water quality and biodiversity improvements can be quantified, tokenized and traded. Tokens backed by a physical asset and physical data. And my personal favorite is that the data that demonstrates these assets can be referenced, validated and audited all in one place, fulfilling the 6 V's: volume, velocity, variety, veracity, value and validity. A combined data set of natural capital on the BSV ledger. This allows the data to be indexed and retrieved in a self-serve pay-per-view framework open to investors, citizens, researchers and modelers worldwide. So that's natural capital. How about urban environments? This is the Cairns Urban Tree Database, a record of about 30,000 trees in the wet tropic city of Cairns, a city in a forest. I record, audit and validate trees for this project, a project that was created for monitoring and management of urban trees. So this database uses iTree modelling methodologies to create an indicative eco-value. It demonstrates that there's natural capital and therefore potential. We're already recording the flora data. We have the models to calculate the eco-values. If only we had a mechanism to allow the realisation of this natural capital. We'll soon find out with Brendan's talk. And right now, we're in talks with the local government to investigate how this could be achieved. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. So firstly, I would like to do a quick update on where we're at with Elas. Firstly, our team is growing. So we have brought on Mo Jaber as our Director of Business. Well-known Bitcoin developer Darren Kellenschweiler, otherwise known as Degan, is coming on as our Chief Technical Officer. And Freddie Honohan is coming on as a MetaNet Specialist. As part of the deal with Darren, I'm very pleased to announce that Elas is acquiring Probatus, including Baymail and Rounddesk, and both of those will continue to operate into the long term. I'm also very pleased to announce a couple of deals around cash currency with our tokens, and the first is with YenPoint, who we provided a test wallet. And the second is a major deal that we have just signed this afternoon, which is Amleh Gold. And so we will be developing a prototype gold-backed currency for them in the near future. And I look forward to demonstrating that soon. And as well, please come and see us at our booth. We have commemorative Bitcoin tokens that we're handing out for free to everyone, but there's only a limited number, so please get in quick. So getting on to the Internet of Things, one of the first things that I started looking at a few weeks ago was control system, or a few months ago actually with Paul, was control system management. So in a previous life, I was a control systems engineer, and looking at ways to use tokens to create state machines using Bitcoin. And using a platform known as Node-RED, we are looking to develop a prototype system that allows us to add node software into these small IoT devices to control basic systems out in the field. And we've worked on a demonstration system which is very simple, just a tank, a pump, and a valve, and printing output control tokens, which we then manage using input devices who are the signatures that push these tokens into new states. And so we control the state of each token using input data from the system and push the tokens through a finite state machine architecture to activate the control. And you can see it's quite simple. The tokens operate using very simple Bitcoin script. Everything is done in script using signatures. And I'm looking forward very much to getting this off the ground. The next thing I'd like to talk about is GPS tracking for the establishing the provenance of food. And this is a project I'm very excited about. And I'm keen to announce today that we actually have hardware moving around being tested from a company in Brisbane called Moovement. Moovement make GPS trackers for cows. It's actually a tag that goes in the cow's ear and tracks the location of the cow as it moves around the farm grazing. With MetaStream and a close grazier family friend of mine called the Hughes family, we're going to execute a project to deliver tracking of cattle through their life to enhance consumer choice at the supermarket. So basically, we create a ledger for our cattle tracking system. Within that cattle tracking system, we create sub-ledgers for each farm that is going to be having cows being tracked. We issue tokens for each cow, and then as those cows go through their life, move around the farm, undergo medical procedures, take medicine, get evaluated, weighed, we update that cow's token. And so at the end of that cow's life, when it goes to be processed, we then use that token to create a processing report that tells us all of the different cuts that came from that cow. And those output, the tokens output from that processing report are then attached to the meat products as they are sent to the supermarket. So when the consumer goes to the supermarket and scans a QR code on their beef, they gain access to an immutable report that covers that cow's entire life and shows everything that's happened to that cow. So this is a very exciting project. It's already happening, and we look forward to bringing you updates as quickly as possible. The last thing I want to talk about today relates very closely to what Daniel was talking about just before, which is a carbon marketplace. So we have a huge urban resource of trees, and every day, as Dan was talking about, these trees are drawing carbon out of the atmosphere. And carbon is something that is quite a valuable commodity today, and what we want to enable is the use of these urban trees as a carbon abatement resource. And so again, we create a ledger for the management of these tokens. And then as people like Dan go around and audit this carbon resource, we take those audit reports and we use those to generate carbon tokens. And the carbon tokens are issued against a copy of that audit report, which is stored on the ledger. And those tokens are then put into a marketplace where they can be sold for the abatement of carbon. So somebody who has a carbon deficit can come into that marketplace and buy these tokens straight off the Bitcoin ledger and be given a receipt that immutably shows that these tokens are from an audited resource in our system. And it's all tracked and traceable on the Bitcoin ledger. So very exciting stuff happening. And we're looking at doing a project here in the Cairns City Council. We've already audited, or not we, but Dan has already audited 30% of the trees in Cairns. We have 2,900 tonnes of carbon resource being gathered every year, which is valued at approximately $40,000. But once the audit of the Cairns Regional City Council is complete, we estimate that will be more like $400,000 per year of carbon. And those will be coming to a carbon exchange near you very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Team Australia. What a terrific presentation. And if you'll stay for a moment, we have a few minutes remaining in the session. I'd love to ask you some questions. The first question I think I'm going to ask you is actually from our online audience. Can cows trade Bitcoin SV?
Well, hopefully, maybe one day, the cows themselves will be represented by BSV. So we will be able to trade BSV that represents cows. I don't know if it'll be the cows themselves doing the trading, but maybe we'll set something up.
Yeah, sentience of cows, that works for me.
It's great to see the three of you together, and it really reflects great teamwork and collaboration among different companies. So I have actually a more serious question, which is, it's great to hear about the use of these IoT devices to audit trees in Cairns. What other types of environmental and ecological projects, Dan, do you envision being able to use this type of technology to audit or record data about to the Bitcoin SV blockchain?
That's almost an open-ended question, Jimmy. As our machines get smarter and smarter, I can see semi-automated UAVs flying over plantations or cities or even cow paddocks, recording information and sending it directly to blockchain. It's just the tip of the iceberg. Like, this really is still in its infancy, and as humans move further down this path, I think the world's going to be our oyster.
Yes. And Paul, congratulations on the work you've been doing with MetaStream. I saw on Twitter, and I know that you are running some tests this week, testing the transaction volume capacity of MetaStream on the main network of Bitcoin SV. Can you tell our audience about some of the tests you're running and how that is performing this week?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jimmy. Yeah, all good. I mean, one of the ideas to test, not so much a capacity test like we might have run in the past, was more about just a prolonged test, a bit more stamina type of a test where we have multiple streams of data coming into our platform simultaneously and we're transacting them through the network. Some of those tests that we're running at the moment have been for, B-vote ballots from Eli Afram, the predict Ecology, Dan's data for tree survey data, and machine learning data. So that's something that's interesting. We're looking forward to playing around a little bit more with that moving forward and working with Dan in that. Sort of thinking back to Craig's presentation this morning about the computation on Bitcoin and the idea of packaging this sort of work up and sending it out and putting a reward system in place where people can download jobs, process that information and upload the results. And that's definitely something that we're sort of starting to tinker with some of our tests at the moment, yes. And of course, we've got some
So you're all
tokens running through from Brendan as well.
Great. So you're all based in Australia, and your initial test projects and initial partnerships are very Australia-based. What are your thoughts and plans on how to bring each of your capabilities to other countries around the world?
Well, I mean, we think a lot of these things are quite standard. I know that I've spoken to a few people in the sort of agricultural automation industry and so forth. There are differences, I think, generally in some countries, especially I think Europe is a little bit different. But from my understanding, a lot of the agricultural type things, for example, in that industry is very similar throughout Australia, Asia, and the US, I'm led to believe. And I think things like what Dan's project with Ecology, I mean, once we have that sort of basic template in place, I think, the idea with in terms of, say, carbon abatement is that it doesn't really matter where you're sequestering the carbon. It could be anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter. It has no borders. So we think that, being able to start with the local use cases, be able to put those into a tokenized format that we can realize value for, then we think that the market for that is potentially global anyhow, and a template that could be used around the world is moving forward.
In reality, we have transferable skill sets. They're demonstrated to be scalable. We have an internet connection. I mean, we're broadcasting from a conference room in Keane to all over the world at the moment. Yeah, I can see this going everywhere.
Yeah, all of the systems that we're working on at the moment, while they're being developed in Australia and a lot of the projects are currently very Australia-centric, are all applicable around the world. Bitcoin is everywhere, and the technology that we're using is available everywhere. And so there's nothing that we're doing that necessarily has to be isolated to us here, even though we might be for the immediate future. But yes, definitely global applicability across all of these ideas.
So Dan, you did not come from the Bitcoin or Bitcoin SV world. Tell us and our audience about what your experience has been so far, learning about Bitcoin, Bitcoin SV, and applying your firm's work to Bitcoin.
It's been definitely a steep learning curve, at least in the first instance. I've been supported by some very good team. And a team who are able to articulate some fairly heavy concepts in a way that an ecologist will. I mean, we are systems thinker and BSV and Bitcoin is a system. So to directly answer your question, how I'm finding it, I'm actually loving it. It's an opportunity for me to build a time-stamped series. And that's one of the things that, as an ecologist, I really miss. We collect data and a snapshot. Even a PhD, it only lasts for 3 years. You only collect a small amount of data. And the results can be really difficult because they're very small. Whereas we now have the opportunity to record something that my grandchildren will be able to use. So I've loved it. I'm loving it.
It's great to hear. We have one last audience question before we wrap up. Could something like this, meaning the entire MetaStream type platform and what you're doing with Predict Ecology, be used to audit vaccines, a hot topic in today's world, including what is put in the vaccines and tracking batches to geological systems?
Ooh, I think absolutely. It's very possible for us to tokenize the entire supply chain that goes into the manufacture of a vaccine. And with what Craig Wright was talking about this morning or last night with puff devices and devices that can create immutable records that are not just stamped in time, but stamped to a particular device, we can get very, very particular information about batches, about ingredient mixes, about tested outputs from those mixes. So I think there's definitely an opportunity to improve or at least provide people with some sort of clarity about what's going into that moving forward, yes.
All right, well, thank you all, gentlemen, for your work and efforts in helping us take a big step forward with big data and IoT on the Bitcoin SV blockchain. And I encourage all of the companies out there in Bitcoin SV land, as well as in other industries, to contact these gentlemen if you want to be working on projects that use IoT devices and big data with the Bitcoin ledger.